Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the English Cat podcast. I am Emma, and as always, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, David. How are you doing today, David?
Hi, Emma. I am doing great, thank you. I am really excited about today's topic. Yesterday, I received an email from one of our regular listeners, a guy named Carlos from Brazil. He told me that every time he wants to speak English, he feels like his brain is running a marathon. He thinks of the word in Portuguese, translates it to English, checks the grammar, and only then does he speak. By the time he is ready, the conversation has already moved on.
Oh, poor Carlos. I think we can all relate to that, right? It is such a common frustration. When you are a B1 level learner, you actually know a lot of words. You know the grammar rules. But there is this annoying wall between your thoughts and your mouth. It feels like you are working as a full-time translator inside your own head. And honestly, that job is exhausting.
It really is. I remember when I was trying to learn Spanish a few years ago. I went to a local market to buy some apples. In my head, I prepared the perfect sentence. I translated it word for word. But when the shopkeeper asked me a simple, unexpected question, my whole system crashed like an old computer. I just stood there, staring at him, pointing at the apples like a crazy person.
That is a hilarious image, David. But it is exactly what happens. When we learn a language in school, we are often taught to translate. We see an English word, and we immediately link it to the word in our native language. So if you see the word dog, your brain instantly jumps to your native word for dog. This creates a double step. Your brain has to work twice as hard. Exactly. And that double step is what slows you down. When you are having a real conversation, speed matters. People do not want to wait 10 seconds for you to finish translating a sentence. It makes you feel nervous. And when you feel nervous, you make even more mistakes. It is a vicious circle. It truly is. And the funniest thing is that sometimes translation just does not work because languages are structured differently. If you translate word for word, you end up saying things that sound really strange in English. For example, in some languages, you say that you have hunger, but in English, we say you are hungry. If you translate literally, people might understand you, but it sounds unnatural. That is so true. So the big question is, how do we break this habit? How do we stop translating and start thinking directly in English? Well, before we look at the solutions, we need to understand how our brains actually handle language. Let us take a quick break and look at how we all learned our very first language when we were kids. Now, David, let us think about children. When a little baby learns to speak, they do not have a dictionary. A 2-year-old child does not sit down with a grammar book and memorize lists of verbs. They do not translate anything because they do not have a first language to translate from.
That is a very good point, Emma. Children learn by connecting words directly to the world around them. When a mother points to a fluffy animal and says, "dog," the child connects the sound "dog" directly to the image of that animal. They do not connect it to another word. They connect it to a real thing, a feeling, or an action.
Exactly. They build a direct connection in their brain. As adults, we tend to overthink everything. We think we need to understand the exact grammatical reason for every single sentence. We memorize long lists of vocabulary words, but we do not know how to use them in real life because we have not connected them to real experiences.
Yes, we focus so much on memorization, but thinking in English is actually much more important than having a huge vocabulary. It is better to know 500 words and be able to use them automatically without thinking than to know 5,000 words but need a long time to translate them.
I agree completely. And how do children get to that automatic level? It is through the incredible power of listening. Think about it. A baby listens to their parents for an entire year or more before they say their very first word. They are completely surrounded by the language. They listen to the rhythm, the sounds, and the intonation long before they understand the rules.
So, you are saying that our listeners right now are doing exactly what they need to do? They are listening to us talk, and that is helping their brains adapt?
Yes, absolutely. Listening to natural conversations at a B1 level, like this podcast, is one of the best ways to train your brain. You are absorbing the structure of the language naturally. You start to notice how words go together. For example, you do not need to memorize that we say make a mistake instead of do a mistake. If you listen to enough English, do a mistake will just start to sound wrong to your ears.
That is so true. It becomes a feeling rather than a rule. I always tell my students that language is a habit, not a science project. You need to practice it until it becomes natural, like riding a bicycle or driving a car. You do not think about turning the wheel or pressing the pedal every time. You just do it.
Precisely. But since we are adults and we do not have all day to sit around and listen like babies, we need some active strategies to speed up the process. So, in the next part, we are going to share some very practical, easy exercises that you can start doing today to train your brain to think in English.
All right, let us get into the practical stuff. Emma, if a listener wants to start thinking in English today, what is the very first step they should take?
My absolute favorite exercise is called narrating your day. It is incredibly simple, and you can do it completely in your head, so nobody will think you are crazy. Basically, you just become the main character in a movie, and you describe what you are doing as you do it.
Oh, I love that. Can you give us an example of how that works?
Sure. Imagine you wake up in the morning. Instead of thinking in your native language, you say to yourself in English, "Okay, it is 7 o'clock. Time to wake up. I am getting out of bed. Now, I am walking to the kitchen. I am going to make a hot cup of coffee. I need a mug, some milk, and sugar. Oh, this coffee smells amazing." It is a very basic narrative, but it forces your brain to connect English words directly to your physical actions.
That is brilliant. And the best part is that you do not need an advanced vocabulary for this. You just use simple sentences. If you do not know the word for a specific kitchen tool, you can just say, "I am using this thing to make breakfast." The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to keep the English flowing in your mind without stopping to translate.
Exactly. And that brings us to the next exercise,
which is talking to yourself. Now, you can do this silently in your head, or if you are alone at home, you can actually speak out loud. When you talk to yourself, you remove all the pressure. There is no fear of making mistakes because nobody is listening to you. You can practice expressing your thoughts, your plans, or your feelings. I actually do this when I am cleaning the house or doing the dishes. I will pretend that someone is interviewing me on a famous talk show, and I will answer their questions. It sounds funny, but it really helps. Another great exercise is describing your environment. When you are sitting on the bus or waiting in line at a supermarket, look around you. Try to name the objects you see. Look at that person over there. They are wearing a blue jacket and reading a book. Look at that car. It is moving very fast.
That is a great way to use your free time. It keeps your brain active in English. Another important tip is to build an English environment around you. Change the language settings on your smartphone and your social media accounts to English. When you want to watch a movie or a YouTube video, try to use English subtitles instead of subtitles in your native language. If the video is a bit too difficult, that is totally fine. Just choose something a bit easier, like cartoons or vlogs.
Yes, making small changes in your daily routine can have a huge impact over time. You do not need to study grammar for 3 hours a day. Just 5 minutes of thinking in English while you brush your teeth, or 10 minutes of listening to a podcast while you walk, will create new pathways in your brain. It is all about consistency.
It really is. Now, you might be wondering, what actually happens when you stick to these exercises? How does your life change when your brain finally makes the switch? Let us talk about that beautiful transformation in the final part of our episode. We have talked about why we translate, how children learn, and some great exercises to train your brain. Now, let us talk about the magic moment when everything changes. Emma, do you remember when you realized you were finally thinking in another language? Oh, yes. I remember it so clearly. I was learning French, and I had been practicing these exact exercises for a few months. One night, I had a dream. When I woke up, I realized that the people in my dream were speaking French, and I was answering them effortlessly. I did not have to translate anything in the dream. It was an amazing feeling. It felt like a superpower.
That is incredible. Having a dream in your target language is definitely a huge milestone. But even before that happens, you will start to notice small changes in your daily life. You will notice that when someone asks you a question in English, the answer will just pop into your head instantly. You won't feel that panic or that hesitation anymore. Your speaking speed will increase dramatically, and your confidence will skyrocket.
It really changes everything. I want to share a quick success story about one of our listeners, Sophia from Italy. She started using our tips about 6 months ago. She told us that she used to be terrified of speaking to native English speakers at her job. But she started narrating her day and talking to herself every single morning. Last week, she had a surprise meeting with a client from London, and she said the words just flowed naturally. She didn't translate a single sentence. She was so proud of herself, and we are so proud of her too.
That is such an inspiring story, Sophia. If you are listening to this right now, please know that you can achieve this too. Thinking in English is not a special talent that only some people have. It is a skill that anyone can develop with a little bit of patience and practice. You do not need to be perfect. Mistakes are just a natural part of the journey.
Absolutely. So, to finish today's episode, we want to give you a challenge. We call it the 24-hour English Challenge. For the next 24 hours, we want you to try to think in English as much as possible. Whenever you find yourself waiting, walking, or doing a simple task, try to narrate your actions or describe the things around you in English. Even if you only do it for 1 minute at a time, it counts.
Yes, accept the challenge. We would love to hear how it goes. Leave a comment below this video and tell us about your experience. Did you find it easy? Did you find it difficult? We read all your comments, and we love hearing from you. Well, that is all for today's episode of English Cat. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and practicing your listening skills. You are doing a wonderful job, so keep going. Stay positive, and remember to have fun with your English learning journey. Bye, everyone. See you in the next episode. And do not forget to think in English today.